that car turbocharged? Oh my gosh. What's up guys, it's Drifts and Lifts here, and welcome back to the Drifts and Lifts Epic Volvo Drift YouTube channel. If you have not clicked the subscribe button, do that right now and turn on notifications for a shit ton of Volvo gravy. Like, you're actually drowning in it at this point. You're like, Volvo gravy, like, you know what I mean? So yeah, do that and we're good to go. So today's episode, I'm going to show you guys how to install a ball joint on a Volvo 740. If you have an old 740, you want to, you know, a lot of guys already know how to do this, and this video probably isn't for you. At the end of the video, me and Turbo Scott here are going to go for a rip in his car, so maybe you'll want to see that. But, you know, a lot of you guys are... maybe I've inspired you to get a 740 yourself and start drifting it as a cheap budget way to get into drifting. And you know, a lot of the time the ball joints on these cars have never been replaced. And what that'll, you know, once a ball joint goes out, you're gonna have a lot of knocking and your tire's gonna wobble around. The alignment could be thrown off because of it. It'll cause a bunch of problems in the front end that you don't want. So it's a pretty easy process. We're gonna show you on Scott's car here because Scott, how badly was this thing wobbling down the road?
Like death wobble, like a Jeep's death wobble.
Yeah, Jeep death wobble. I remember I was cruising with him and all of a sudden, like, there'd be periods where all of a sudden, like, the steering wheel would start shaking. You could hear this knocking in the front end. And we actually replaced the ball joint on the other side because that one was like super bad. We replaced it with a used one because that's all we had laying around in the garage at that time. But I actually have a new ball joint that I'm going to throw in Scott's car here. And we're gonna do it that way. So I'll show you guys a step-by-step how to do it. Like I said, pretty easy. But yeah, it's if your car has a broken ball joint, you're gonna want to replace that. So here we go. Let's do it up. All right, guys. Like the first step in every wrenching video is generally jacking your car up. At least when you're working on the suspension. So yep, jack it up from the jack point. Nothing really to it. You guys all know how to do that. And then next step is we're going to get the wheel off. I'll show you guys what we're working with once we got the wheel off. For the ball joint, you're going to want to, depending on if you're using an impact gun or not, like we are, you're going to want to get this pretty high actually, so you can get those two bolts out the bottom of the ball joint. If not, if you don't have an impact, you don't really got to get it quite as high because a wrench will fit under there a little bit easier. But yeah, so we'll get that done and then I'll show you next step. Alright guys, when you're jacking it up, in a couple of videos you guys caught me doing something real bad, but I didn't have a jack stand under the car. You guys are like, do you want to lose your fucking legs, drifts and lifts? You won't be able to do deadlifts anymore. Well, yeah, you're definitely right. So put that jack stand under there and yeah, you'll be good to go. Alright, wheels coming off right now. Let's bust out Mr. Impacto. These D-wall impacts are pretty solid, so it should buzz this off. There we go. You guys will notice that Scott here doesn't have hub-centric spacers, and I never run hub-centric either. But sometimes you get a bit of wheel wobble because of that. So, if you guys are wondering, yeah, just non-hub-centric, there may be a very small difference in how centered the wheel is on the spacer, and it might cause a little bit of wheel hop, or wheel wobble, not really wheel hop, but alright, so we can leave the spacer on, that's not a big deal, we just wanted the wheel out of the way. So, let's see here. Okay, before I get everybody asking in the comments, like every single time, these wheels that Scott has on the front here, I sold them a little while back, and they're Ultra, they're made by like Ultra Alloys, I guess, and it's style 050. So like Ultra style 050. These wheels in particular are 15x8, and I believe they're like -20 to 25 offset. Pretty sick ass wheels. I really dig them. They look good on Scott's car. So just figured I'd clear that up with you guys before I get like a bunch of comments asking what they are, because they are pretty sick. Alright guys, so let's start with our first kind of step here. Make sure your steering wheel isn't locked. If you don't have an impact, you actually might want to lock the steering wheel. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get this tie rod nut off. I believe it's a 19, but it could be an 18. Oh yeah, that's an 18. Okay, so that is an 18. Once we get that off, if you guys haven't removed a tie rod end from like an old seized up car before, it can be kind of a bitch. Okay, I'm gonna teach you a trick that actually, shout out to Dan from Post Haste Performance. If there's one thing I learned from Dan, that I learned many things from Dan, but if probably the most useful thing, and ironically this is pretty simple, that he ever taught me, was that you never put the nut, like unthread the nut and put it on top of the tie rod like I used to do when I was sort of a noob. I still am kind of a noob, but what you do instead, you take this nut off and you actually hammer really hard at here. And honestly, this has helped so many times, because I've had times where I've just tried to pound this tie rod end off with the nut on there and like obviously unthread the nut, basically just using the nut so this top doesn't get mushroomed. But this works way better. You hammer the side and it kind of just breaks it free and it just pops out. So we're gonna get this off with the 18 mil wrench, or the impact I should say, and then I'll show you guys how I pound this out. Okay, before I do that, I'm gonna take some penetrating oil, liquid wrench, and I'm just gonna go over kind of everything, all the spots that we're gonna be removing. So this bottom ball joint nut right here, you're gonna want to spray that. Get these bolts right there, those are gonna come out too. That's for holding the ball joint to the knuckle. There's really only 4 things you got to take off, 4 nuts in total, and 1 bolt actually. That's going to be for this sway bar here. That's a 17 millimeter. Those aren't actually like seized on there ever, so you don't really need a penetrating oil. I'm just not going to. So yeah, let's impact this tie rod nut off and see how we can get this off. There you go, quick work with the impact. I love this thing, man. It makes things so much easier. Okay, so let's turn this all the way this way. Check out that angle that Scott's got on this car, man. Fucking A. That's pretty savage. Yeah, yeah. These are actually custom knuckles that our good friend Aaron Glendon made. Jake Snedden, he can make the exact same ones. They get a buttload of angle. They're probably not perfect in comparison to like a TRX, you know, racing, whatever, this and that. But damn, they get some good angle. So yeah, it worked pretty good when Scott was at Agassi Speedway the other day. All right, guys. So like I said, we're gonna want to hit right about here with the hammer. There you go. Just falls out. So, yeah, like I said, thanks Dan, thank you Daniel, because that's probably like one of the best things he ever taught me. That just, I don't know, you probably guys are like, you're a fucking idiot, that's how everyone's supposed to do it, but I don't know, I used to do it the silly way, and that wasn't working so well, so. Alright guys, so we got that tie rod out now. You know what, actually I did the steps a little bit wrong. Because I have an impact, I can kind of cheat this, but if you don't have an impact, you're going to want to leave the tie rod in, and you're going to want to undo these ball joint bolts and the bottom nut before you remove the tie rod. Because what you're going to want to do is lock the steering wheel, and the only thing that's going to hold this straight is obviously the lock steering wheel with the tie rod in it. But since we have an impact, we can get away with this. Alright, so our next step, we're going to want to get this ball joint bolt. And if we flip this around, there's also one on the back side right here. And then if you look at the bottom ball joint nut that holds it to the control arm, I hope you guys have enough light here, sorry if you don't. As you can see, there's a cotter pin in here. So what you're going to want to do is take some, let's see here, probably some like needle nose pliers. Just get the cotter pin out. Sometimes it can be an absolute bitch. You actually might have to cut it off. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna get that out and put the GoPro down for a sec, and then we're gonna buzz these 3 bolts and nuts off, and then we're gonna be one step closer. Alright guys, so I got that cotter pin out. So now we're gonna buzz this bottom nut off. It is an 18. Thank the Lord for an impact. Again, making things way easier. Alright, now we're going to buzz this ball joint nut off, or it's a ball joint bolt, sorry, it's pretty long. This is also an 18. Out she comes, like that. We're gonna flip this around, get to the front one here. Right there. Again, comes out super nice with the impact. If you guys have the extra spending money, just buy an impact, man. It's gonna help you for so many things working on cars. Sorry to take your impact, Scott.
It's all good, look at it. I'm still using it.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, so I think me and Scott like traded this impact for like a set of wheels and spacers or some shit, and a boost controller, yeah, wideband. Pretty fair trade. It's turned out pretty good. Most of the time Scott works on his car, it's at my house anyways, so not a big deal. Alright guys, so now what we're gonna want to do is remove this this bolt right here. And the reason we're doing that,
you gotta get those on the fucking video.
Oh,
what are those?
Dude, look at those. No comment. Yeah, well, let's just not talk about that. If you guys are like me, you just pick 2 random socks from the pile, and this is the sock I happened to pick today. I thought it'd be kind of cool for the video. Alright, so this is a 17 millimeter. So again, the reason we're taking this off is so this lower control arm can drop down, because if you don't, this control arm's not really going to move a whole lot, and it's going to be really tough to get the knuckle and the strut off of the ball joint to remove it. So let's just take that off. I think I can get at it with an impact again. If not, it's a 17 mil wrench, so easy peasy. Alright guys, so as you can see, I removed this bolt, and the control arm already dropped down about 1 inch or 2. And you can actually just, yeah, see all I'm doing is pushing this down, and it's coming out quite a bit more. If you have cut springs like Scott does, just make sure you line up your cut spring and make sure it's all seated when you do put this back together. Not a huge issue right now. We're not going to worry about that. Alright, Scott, you mind holding this GoPro for me? I'm just going to show him how we remove this. Alright, so this knuckle can actually just pop off the ball joint just like that. There we go. So we got our shitty stock ball joint, and as you can feel, tons of play in that thing. That is disgusting. So this is going to fix Scott's issue of the harsh death wobble without a doubt, guaranteed. So again, same kind of deal for the tie rod. This helps even more for ball joints. You're going to hit with your hammer right about here. Give it a couple really hard smacks. Just keep smacking on it till this just kind of pops loose. Again, I have tried it with the nut on the bottom. Does not work. You have to hit it so much harder and so many more times. This is going to work real good. So we'll get Scott to film this and see if we can get it out. There we go.
Is she gone?
See, the ball joint literally popped out and flew out at the top. There you go, guys. So the ball joint is out now. The strut is obviously just hanging from the top, which isn't a big deal. Just make sure your brake lines aren't getting pinched or stretched in any sort of way. Alright, so let's get our new ball joint and I'll show you guys how to install this bish. Alright guys, so we got a new ball joint here. It comes with the hardware, so these are like the ball joint bolts to hold it to the knuckle. Comes with a new cotter pin and a couple washers. So as far as where you can order ball joints, I got these from Rock Auto. Rock Auto is like dirt cheap. I think this costed like $19 or something like that. It's pretty damn good. Just get a ball joint. Your local hardware or a parts store should have them. It's a pretty common thing for the Volvos. Alright, so installation is obviously just the reverse of how we took it out. So you're gonna remove this castle nut that came on the bottom of it. You're literally just gonna drop it in there just like that. The ball joint can only go one way. Like if you look under where the knuckle is, that kind of pattern, it can only really go in one way. So do it like that. You're gonna put on your bottom castle nut. So crank that on. You're gonna want to get that nice and tight. I'm not too sure the torque spec on that, but it's gonna be, you know, you want it tight so it's not gonna come out on you. Then once you get that, we're going to lift the knuckle back on top of the ball joint, and then we're gonna install everything, just reverse of how we took it all apart. Pretty straightforward. All right, guys, so nut is nice and tight. I just hit it with the impact. The one that came with the ball joint is a 19. It's not an 18, but you guys will be able to figure that out. Yeah, put the cotter pin in, good to go. So now Scott's gonna hold the GoPro while I lift this ball joint, or sorry, lift the knuckle back onto the ball joint. So, okay, I'm gonna say this, guys. With cut springs, this is obviously a lot easier because you actually have a good amount of travel that the strut can go up to be able to put on top of this. Now, if you have stock springs, it's going to be a lot harder to press this up and put it on top of that. So you're probably, you know, I've needed in the past to have a friend help me with this, and they're going to want to push the control arm down as far as they can while you lift that on top of it. But again, this is super easy. This just goes up high enough and clicks on just like that. So now once this is on top of there, you can take your ball joint bolts, these ones right here, you can thread them back in. Might take a little bit of lining up, nothing too hard though, pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna get those in, and then we're gonna do up our tie rod back into the knuckle, and we're gonna have to lift this control arm up a little bit. We might have to use the jack for that. And then we're gonna get our our sway bar bolt back into the control arm, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So we'll see this. I'll get it buttoned up and I'll show you guys. Okay, with all my videos here, I'm trying to be pretty thorough for you guys so I don't miss anything out. One thing that can happen when you're putting this tie rod back in is you go to tighten this nut, and all of a sudden the whole stud starts spinning with it. And the reason that happens is because you didn't seat the tie rod. So what you're gonna wanna do is either put a jack underneath this and press it up into the knuckle, or you're gonna wanna give it a couple good hits on the bottom of the tie rod so it's seated up in there. That way this middle pin here is not gonna spin with the nut. If it's seized, or you know, it's an old nut like we're using here, there's potential of that to happen. I think we might be good on this one, we'll see. Okay, so this one we were fine, so that's kind of lucky. I've actually a lot of the time had that happen to me. So all right, so as you can see, both of our bolts are on the bottom of the ball joint. That's all secure. We got our bottom castle nut on. The last step is to get this the sway bar bolt. Boom boom. How I'm gonna do that, I think, is I'm gonna drop this jack down, and I'm gonna put the jack underneath, put it underneath the control arm. I'm gonna jack the control arm up because it's a lot easier to jack the control arm upwards rather than like bending this sway bar down. That's the whole point of a sway bar. It's supposed to not let the control arm move that much. It's supposed to make your car not have as much body roll, and by doing that, they make the control arm not move too much. All right, so yeah, that's what we're gonna do right now. So there you go, guys. That is a new ball joint in Turbo Scott's Miss Puff. Yeah, so our sway bar is connected. Everything's connected. We are good to go. I impacted all this on, so quickly we're gonna go over with a wrench and just check all of our torque on that. You just want it to be nice and snug. It is a suspension part, so it could come loose on you eventually if you don't get it nice and tight. Yeah, so we're gonna put the wheel back on, our Ultra 50 wheel, sick ass wheel. And then I think we're gonna go for a little cruise in Scott's car. I don't know if you guys have ever been in this car. It's pretty good. It's got a 15G on it with some white injectors. Probably next mod Scott's gonna do is a cam. Then this thing will go, it'll be close to M46 snapping power, and it'll roast tires. So that's that. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Yeah, this is if you got a clunking in your front end, definitely check your ball joints, because with this car doesn't have too many kilometers on it. It's about 250,000 K. But this ball joint here was definitely original, and it has a ton of play in it. Like it's just gross. Up and down play, side to side. Like it even says original Volvo on it, so you know this is a OG Volvo ball joint. Right to the trash for that thing. All right, let's get the wheel back on and we'll go for a cruise. Sick. Alright guys, so we're just in Miss Puff here. If you guys don't know the reason we call this car Miss Puff, is it because when we first got it, it puffed a lot of smoke out the exhaust because of the blown turbo.
Like a lot of smoke.
A lot of smoke. And it also came with a sticker that says Puff right there. You guys can't see it on the GoPro, but when I flip it around you will. And Miss Huff, it's pretty much the same car as Miss Huff. It's red, it's a 1990, it's a manual, and it's a sedan, and it's a 740. The only difference is Miss Huff is non-turbo, Miss Puff is turbo. But yeah, this is your daily driver, Scott. How have you liked daily driving this thing?
Yeah, daily driving your drift car is one of the best feelings in the world, to be honest.
Yeah, you get to like wake up every day like, oh, I get to drive my drift car.
Yeah, exactly. There's no real better feeling than popping your drift car on the board and driving to work.
It's definitely true.
It just sucks when it doesn't work, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Because if you break it, then you can't get to work.
Yeah, it's a rarity.
Yeah.
Volvos are normally drivable even with all that issues.
Just bring it over to the Drifts and Lifts garage and we'll fix her up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this thing's got modified steering knuckles, it's got a welded diff. It's a pretty basic budget setup. It does the job though. Like this thing can slay third gear at the track and stuff. It's still pretty good. It's got a 15G turbo, and what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
It's got a 15G turbo and some white injectors from an S70 T5. So those are 350cc. You're running quite a bit of boost, I gotta say. It's got like 16 pounds.
Yeah, like it settles at like 15 or 16.
Yeah, 15. It spikes to 18, and then the only problem is with the LH 2.4, without an aftermarket chip, you'll get like a boost, a fuel cut if you hit too much boost, and usually that fuel cut happens around, 16, 17 pounds. So here, we'll go up a little ways and we'll show you a little rip here. Me and Scott drove all the way to Washington today, just so we could rip this. Yeah, sorry?
It's a good little drive.
It's a good drive, yeah, it's not too far. The border's just right out like, not too far from the house, so. Yeah, what do you say? We'll do like a boosted launch and run it through the gears.
Yeah.
See how this thing pulls. It pulls pretty good. It's got full interior in it. We did like the sunroof delete, and it's got like the AC delete. That's about it. A little bit of weight reduction, maybe like 100 pounds of weight reduction. Nothing crazy, but enough for a street car. Still is nice in here. He's got this dope ass knockoff bride seat. I'm really liking sitting in it right now. It's pretty fun. Okay, we'll do a bit of a launch here. Just rubbing. Yeah, this thing rubs pretty bad.
Yeah. You go back to the smaller profile.
Yeah. Holy fuck. Okay. I've been driving Lawrence for like the last while, and this car has knuckles, and it's way different.
Yeah.
So I'm not even gonna try that again. That was fucking sketchy. Oh dude, that's so much different.
Yeah.
Oh my god. We might have to get Scott in here and show us how it's done.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Sorry for that.
all good.
Almost crashed your car. Oh man. Yeah, no, it's when you go from not knuckles to knuckles, it's actually a really big difference because the steering ratio is so much different. It steers a lot quicker, and a little bit of input with the wheel is going to turn into a lot more than you think it is. So that's what just happened right there. I promise. It's not an excuse. It's a real thing. No, this car's pretty sick, man. I really dig it. We'll turn around here. I think this street's called George Washington Street.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, or maybe like Bush Street or something. Maybe Obama Street, I forget.
$7,000 car.
Yeah, like what was the original purchase price? Like $800 for this thing?
Yeah, $700, and then I think I bought a clutch off you for $80.
Yep. truck's on the road, good to go.
Yeah.
You guys are all like, where the fuck do you find turbo manuals so often? And that's a good question. We got pretty lucky with this one. Thanks to Jason Seidel. Shout out to Jason if he's.
Thank you, Jason.
If Jason still watches my videos, not sure if he does. But all right, we're gonna let the master show us how it's done. Oh yeah, that tire rubs pretty damn bad.
Yeah.
Probably not this one, but the next one if there's no one coming. Just like do a little slide and just run it through the gears after and just kind of just rip her. So we got the Volvo Stig. I hired him for this video in Washington. Nice.
That rub is something else.
It's rubbing pretty bad.
2 people in here. Gnarly.
Yeah. Alright guys, so we hopped over the border. We're back in Canada now. Yeah, so that's basically a wrap up of the video. Hope you guys liked it. That's how to replace a ball joint on a Volvo 740. If you got a clunk in your front end and you know you got some weird stuff going on with your alignment and stuff, check your ball joints. It's pretty likely that they're probably the original ball joints and they just need to be replaced. They got some play in them. Yeah, so make sure to head over to the Drifts and Lifts store. I know I sound like a broken record, but for any of you guys that are new to the channel, the link to the store is in the description of this video. You can get yourself a Volvo Drift Pilsner shirt, 100% giver bud, only sold in 2.3 liter cans, because you know you're gonna get fucked up. Good way to support the channel. I appreciate everybody who buys the Volvo Drift Beer shirts. Keeps me going, keeps me doing what I love to do, making videos for you guys. And we got some new designs coming out real soon. We're hoping to do a Volvo Drift Gravy shirt, so that's gonna be pretty sick. I'll keep it a surprise of what it's gonna look like, but you guys can probably already guess. So other stuff to come for the channel, guys. So this is gonna be a little hard to say for some of you, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. And Lawrence, now it is a good car, but the problem is it's a sedan and it's got some rust on the bottom. And I've done a lot of pondering on this, and you know, I've came to the conclusion that I want to build a wagon. A wagon's what I started drifting. It's when the channel first became something. I was drifting a wagon. Something about a sleeper wagon just really tickles me the right way. Tickle. Yeah, so I actually found a good wagon. It is relatively overpriced as far as most of the cars I bought in the past, but it's a turbo manual wagon with a bunch of mods on it, and it's got a 90 block in it, so it's got like big rods in it. It'll be a pretty good platform for the start of a build. Probably do like a staged build on it. But so I think I'm gonna be selling Lawrence to my good friend Owen. He's gonna take the reins of that. He's gonna start drifting it. You guys won't, you'll still see the car in other videos. And hopefully on Saturday, we are going to go and get this wagon. Now I gotta take a ferry ride and go get it. But that seems like the plan right now. So no like 100% this is what's happening, but it's kind of what I've been thinking. I've never actually put like modified knuckles and coilovers and a bunch of cool parts into a wagon and actually got some good power out of it. So that's gonna be kind of the idea with this build. It's just what I want. It's what I have my heart set on. I'd need a wagon. So yeah, sorry to disappoint some of you, but a lot of you will probably be pretty stoked about that. So thanks to Turbo Scott for letting me work on his car today. Thanks for letting me take it for a rip here. We dropped Volvo Stig off at his house in Washington, so he's back home now. He's probably still sitting on his couch wearing a helmet. I don't know, the guy's pretty weird, but he can drive pretty good, which is cool. So yeah, I think that's about it for today, guys. Like and subscribe for big Volvo pimples.
Hell yeah.
Peace out.